Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Love Fruit podcast. And today's guest has been requested by a number of people. Loren Lockman. He is the founder, director of the Tanglewood Wellness Center. Loren has been working as a fasting facilitator for many decades, worked with many thousands of people. He's based in the moment in Costa Rica, I believe, at the Tanglewood Wellness Center. And he's someone that has a lot of good things to say and a lot of good knowledge about the raw vegan lifestyle and natural hygiene lifestyle. So, Loren, is there anything else you would like to say about yourself to introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Ronnie. First of all, I'm glad to be here with you. It's a pleasure. It's always good to see you. Well, I can say a couple things. I mean, Tanglewood, first of all, we celebrated our 26th anniversary about 10 days ago. And so as you're right, we've fasted many thousands of people for an average of about 26 days over all these years. We are the world's largest dedicated water-only fasting center. In addition to that, back in the throes of that first year of the pandemic, when Costa Rica closed its borders for 6 months and no one could get to us, I had a little bit of free time on my hands. And so I did something I've been wanting to do for years, and we created the Academy for Vibrant Living. We now offer 2 courses. They're self-paced online courses. One is called Vibrant Health. The other one is the Health Coaching course, which when you complete that, you get a third-party certification as a health coach. Let's see, in addition to that, probably the thing that's I'm really most excited about, Tanglewood has been my life for a long time now. And I continue doing it, even though it's been challenging for many years. And even though it hasn't been particularly, it's not the best way to make a living, shall we say. I mean, I don't pay myself because all the money first went into creating what we have, and more recently has gone into the other project. And the other project I'm speaking of is Las Cascadas. And, one of the things as a 30 and a half year, next month I'll celebrate my half year plus 30 as a raw vegan fruitarian, I've always wanted to create a community because you know what it's like being surrounded by people that don't get it. And I'm okay. I'm the lone wolf type. I can do I don't care if everyone else thinks I'm an idiot. It doesn't make any difference to me. But it'd be nice to be surrounded by like-minded people. And so the idea was to create that possibility. And it grew from being a simple intentional community to something much larger. And so we now have 600 acres that we have title to. We have another 900 acres under contract. I'm negotiating for about 1,000 more acres right now in many different parcels. I mean, I've negotiated contracts now with about 15 or 18 different people, different parties. It's a bunch of different farms that we've been able to put together. And what's cool about this, I mean, this project will include a large nature preserve where we have 20 waterfalls, including the 2 highest waterfalls in Central America. It's an amazing place. We will have a large organic permaculture-based fruit farm where we will grow every single variety of fruit we can get our hands on. We have space for at least 50,000 fruiting trees. And so there may be many more than that. We will have a world-class botanical garden. We'll have a little commercial village. And one of the things that came up was that many prospective community members needed a way to make a living. They didn't have enough assets to simply end their life in Europe or the UK or the US and come here and live. They were going to need to make a living. So I thought, okay, well, we'll create something that attracts tourists, and hence the botanical garden, the nature preserve, the fruit farm, little commercial village where there'll be shops and boutiques and all organic raw vegan eateries. There'll be a spa, there'll be a conference center. There's a lot of things going on. We've been approved so far for nearly $3 million in grants because of the environmental aspects of the project. And this is a big deal. We have a world-class developer that's going to be taking the helm for me to run the development. Doesn't want a fee because he sees the beauty of this. He wants a little piece of it. He actually wants some ownership in it. The former president's sister is very interested in our project and is helping us support this. So we've got award-winning documentary filmmakers who've made documentaries about the environment that want to create a documentary about what we're doing here. And so it's very, very cool things happening. And we're moving forward. Hopefully we'll be building the first houses within the next 12 months. And so this is a place where fruitarians, if you like to live in a place where you can grow your own food, have beautiful weather year round. I'm in shorts and flip flops almost every day of the year, and be able to get enough sunlight, etc. The sun, that's that yellow thing in the sky. Because you forgot.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It's anyway. So that's a little bit more about what I've been up to. But it's that's really, that's something.
What a vision.
Yeah. I've been visioning for 30 years. So.
Cool. Well, I definitely want to ask you more about that and get into more detail about that. However, at the same time, this is the first interview we've done for this particular podcast. So for those who haven't come across you, I guess the first thing I'd like to start off with is going into a little bit of your backstory.
Sure.
For those who are starting off in this kind of lifestyle, and most people come from a conventional background. Is that the same with you? Come from a standard American diet growing up, or something different?
I did. Yeah, I did. I mean, it was. Hey, buddy, it was a standard American diet, except that my mother, I think, was a little bit more conscious, and so we didn't have all the junk food that some people did, but we ate meat every single day. We had, she thought that milk was good for you. We were allowed to eat ice cream, no candy, except on Halloween. But yeah, it was a standard American diet growing up. And, I didn't know any better, like anybody else. And what happened was, first of all, the significant part of my story is I got interested in nutrition at a young age. In my 14th year of life, I grew 10 inches, 25 centimeters without gaining a pound. Look like a stick with a nose. So, here hormones are kicking in. I'm wanting the girls to find me attractive, and I look like a stick with a nose. So I thought to myself, if I study nutrition and begin working out, maybe I can build some muscle. I started studying nutrition. I got very interested in it. I kind of dropped, I let it go a little bit through high school and college. But after college, I got very sick. At 23, I found myself unable to really do much of anything. I was later diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic sinusitis, systemic candida, and 57 allergies. And I could barely move. I was in bed for most of 3 years. I still worked because I bought a house and needed to pay a mortgage. But I bought a house that was 8-10 blocks, like a mile from my office, so that I could get to the office. I could wake up at 8:30 and be at the office by 9 o'clock. I would leave. I would go to we had a structured parking garage, and I was actually the youngest officer of the company. And I had a parking space inside this garage where it was relatively dark. I had this little tiny battery powered alarm clock. And I'd go in there every day at noon, and I'd sleep for an hour because I was exhausted after being up for 3.5 hours. And so I'd sleep for an hour, and then I'd wake up and go back to my desk for another 4 or 5 hours until I could go home. I was just really trying to get through the day.
And that was like the chronic fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. I mean, it was the irritable bowel syndrome. I literally had a stack of books on my toilet tank because I'd spent hours in the bathroom.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was terrible. And so 3 years going to doctors. This is when every year. After a year, I said, okay, I'm getting worse, not better. I found another doctor. After a year, I'm getting worse, not better. I found another doctor. I'm taking antibiotics. He's got me on this crap. Third doctor, I finally said, these guys don't have any idea what they're talking about. This isn't helping me. And that's when I decided, done with medicine. Okay, I was 26 years old. I'm done with medicine. Now, I'll be 61 in a couple weeks. And I haven't been to a doctor since I was 26, not for any regular anything. 35 years. I mean, I broke my hip falling 10 feet off onto concrete a few years ago. Thought I'd broken my spine. I went ahead and did get some X-rays to check. But aside from that, I haven't seen a doctor. I've never gone to a doctor for being ill at all. What happened was when I finally gave up on medicine, the first thing I thought was, well, I don't know where else to turn. The only thing I knew about was nutrition. And so when medicine failed me, I went back to nutrition, and I realized I was doing everything conventional nutrition said I should do. And here I was, sicker than anybody I knew at my age. And so I thought, okay, if nutrition doesn't work and medicine doesn't work, I didn't know anything else. If I'd grown up, hey buddy, this is my friend Shai. If I'd grown up in Southern California, I probably would have had many other options. But I grew up where all we had was allopathic. This is outside of Washington, D.C. All we had was allopathic medicine. I didn't know there were chiropractic. I know of any of these things that existed. Probably helped me, saved me some time.
Here's
right?
the thing, Loren, can I ask, because there's a few questions.
Yeah.
The first thing is you mentioned going to a bunch of doctors, and then you also mentioned you mentioned allergies, candidiasis, chronic fatigue. Sometimes I feel like some of these conditions are diagnosed not by medical doctors, but by like naturopaths and other kinds of doctors. And the other thing is, did none of the doctors offer any advice of any other approach? And then I was thinking, sorry, I had so many things come into my mind from what you were saying. You were studying nutrition at 14, but what was it that you were, how did you actually change your diet at that age? Like what did you actually do?
Well, at that age,
a whole bunch of questions to throw there, but it just all came up.
At that age, some of the theories were quite different than the theories I eventually decided, made sense to me. But the point of that really is simply that it interested me, nutrition and the feeding of the human body, because I think most people don't really think about it until they get sick. And I was fortunate because I wasn't really sick. I wanted to be bigger. I had some motivation that was a little bit unusual. And so I started paying much more attention to what I was eating, and I cleaned my diet. Even through college, again, I drank alcohol and smoked pot, mushrooms and other substances in school, and I still ate everything, but I started eating a lot less meat. I started eating a lot less sugar. I started eating virtually no processed crap. I was eating much more whole foods. I made significant changes to my diet, even in college. And after I got sick at 23, at 26, when I finally walked away from medicine, what occurred to me was, I'll come back to your question, what occurred to me there was, okay, if nutrition, the way it's being taught, didn't really help me because I was already doing what they said.
Right, I see.
Why not? What's wrong with that? And what occurred to me was that their approach was simply incorrect. I still think that's true. The way it's taught in most schools doesn't make much sense. It's a reductionist approach. What you're looking at is, do you have all the nutrients you need, right? You know as well as I do. You go to a hospital, they might be giving you a cheeseburger with Jell-O and tater tots, French fries, whatever. It's not a healthy diet. But they think it is because they make sure that you've got all the vitamin C and all the B vitamins. That's how they're looking at it.
Yeah, I see.
What occurred to me at 26 was that it had to be much more than just about nutrients. It had to be about how we interact with whole foods instead. And that's when I gave up everything but whole foods. I gave up animal products at that point because I realized that our digestive physiology was completely different. My buddy here, Chai, is an obligate carnivore, right? He's got to eat meat or he's going to have serious problems. But he's got a very short, smooth, straight digestive tract. When I started looking at that, I thought, okay, we're nothing like these animals. We're completely different than they are. Our systems, of course, are practically identical to the chimpanzees and bonobos, who live almost exclusively on fruit. And so at that point, at 26, I made dramatic changes to my diet, but it didn't occur to me. I didn't work out. It's funny. It seems a little bit. I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you that the question that occurred to me then was, what's natural for my body? I've got to figure out what's natural for the human body. It took me several more years to realize that cooking wasn't natural.
Right.
And that's, so I was cooking all my own food. I had nice cookware. I got all the garbage out, and I had whole foods. I stopped I used to go to restaurants. Again, I was in commercial real estate for years, and so I was making pretty good money in my 20s, early 20s. But when this occurred to me, I thought, okay, you know what? I don't know what they're putting in their food. I'm going to control all of it. And so I started eating only whole foods. I was cooking them myself. But okay, buddy, go. He's about to get fed. Hey, Ash, go ahead, buddy. You can call him Gazelle. He's in here too. So that shifted things for me dramatically. That's when I said, okay, nothing now except whole foods. And it took me several years to realize that it was wrong. And that was it for me. I mean, I took all the things in my pantry that were cooked or needed to be cooked, and I gave them away. I took like 3 boxes to a homeless shelter and said, do what you want with this stuff. You know, I'm sure they threw some out. Do what you want. Then I got rid of my cookware.
Nice.
You know, people sometimes say, don't burn your bridges behind you. Someone once said, burn your bridges behind you.
Right,
That was
right.
clear. It made sense to me. There's 25 million animal species on the planet that all eat 100% raw food. How can it be that we have to eat cooked food? Right? It made no sense.
So let me get just that question again. I asked too many questions in one, but who were you diagnosed by? Like some of the conditions you had? Was it conventional medicine? Because I'm just curious, because I often hear some of those things also get diagnosed with like alternative practitioners as well. And you're
it's no question. The 3 MDs that I went to those first 3 years all diagnosed the sinus condition and the allergies.
Right.
They diagnosed those. That's conventional medicine. They all said at the time, you know, when I was talking about the feelings of fatigue, I was exhausted all the time. They're like, no, you just need to rest more. I was resting most of the time. Irritable bowel syndrome. They literally, like each of them said something along the lines of, just be careful what you eat. And that worked really well, unless I ate food, any food. But it was a chiropractor, and maybe, I think it was just a couple of chiropractors who eventually told me, this is irritable bowel syndrome, this is candida, this is chronic fatigue.
Right.
I mean, again, you know, keep in mind, we're talking about 35 years ago. And the conservative MDs outside of Washington, D.C. 35 years ago didn't believe any of those conditions existed.
Right. So be interested to know what your thoughts are on chiropractors versus medical doctors, and do you still think that they're often going the wrong direction?
Well, you know, I think, I mean, again, listen, I'm no expert on chiropractic, and there's many different flavors of chiropractic. I've had some interesting experiences, as I think you know. I've spent most of the last 25 years, not most of the 25 years, but over the last 25 years, I mean, with the exception of like the last couple of years, there hasn't been much. But for most of the last 25 years, whenever we've had a break, I've been on lecture tours all over the world. And I've had a chance to speak and give lectures and seminars literally all over the world in some 30 countries. And so I've encountered all kinds of things and learned about things I didn't know about. I can't remember the name, the founder of chiropractic, some American, who decided that it was subluxations in the spine that created all disease.
Right.
All disease. That is obviously not true. That's
right.
That's absurd. However, I think it's absolutely true that we run into mechanical problems. You know, we wind up having issues, accidents, etc. We wind up with damage, and the chiropractic can help. I think that conventional chiropractic is often too violent, and we have a massage therapist here who is a big, powerful Costa Rican woman, and she's actually a doctor of chiropractic. There's not much call for her services in the area, so mostly she practices massage. She's also a trained, licensed massage therapist. So she does massage, but when I've had, like, I ride motorcycles. I have a quadricycle, which I've rolled a couple times. I surf and rock climb and ride mountain bikes. And when I've had an accident and I'm, feeling a little bit tweaked, she's like, "Here, let me adjust that." She scares me because she's twice my size, and I'm afraid she's going to like break my back in half. It's a little too violent for me. And then I learned about upper cervical chiropractic on one of my lecture tours. The guy who had organized events in one of the cities I was speaking in said to me afterwards, "I'm an upper cervical chiropractor." I was like, never heard of it. He said, well, this is what I do, and I'd like to give you a free treatment. It's amazing. The upper cervical spine is your neck, very gentle pressure, you can barely feel it, and measurable results. I mean, it's crazy what happened with that. So,
Wow.
I think there are ways that may be a little bit less violent.
Yeah. So, and what the other thing that's coming to my mind is, were you self then, or was there teachers or books or courses you were attending to get to this point of giving up meat, giving up the dairy products, and going on whole foods? Like, what was it that you were researching or learning at the time?
Yeah, I was mostly self-taught. I read a lot. I've always read a lot throughout my life. Again, when I started studying nutrition, I read what I could find. When I got sick 9 years later, I started looking even much more deeply. And at that point, my mind was more open. I'd already come to some realizations. I started looking at different things. I started going to health conferences. I found all kinds of things. I wound up, now I should back up. I mean, at the Air Force Academy, I was at the US Air Force Academy as a cadet there. And I didn't graduate because I have a congenital knee problem, which showed up when I was 19 years old. So I spent 2 years there. They told me I wasn't going to be able to fly, which is the only reason I went there in the first place. I thought it'd be sexy to fly planes. And so when they told me I couldn't fly, I was able to get out at the end of that second year. But I studied physiology, biology. We had very heavy in the sciences at the military academies. And so, I mean, I had that background. I had nutrition. I started going to, when I turned 26 and gave up all cooked food and animal products, I was actually giving my first public lecture. And a woman approached me afterwards and said, it was a very small group. I think there were 10 people there. No one knew who I was. The people that didn't come probably made the right choice because I didn't really know what I was talking about yet. But I was learning, and a woman approached afterwards and said, are you familiar with the American Natural Hygiene Society? I said, no, I've never heard of it. She said, well, you should check them out because they teach a lot of the same things that you do. Now, as you know, Ronnie, natural hygiene is based on, the way I explain it is it's based on trying to apply the laws of nature to the human body. There are teachers, there are people who've been passing this forward for years, more than a couple of hundred years now. The big giant was Herbert Shelton in the early 20th century. He started practicing around 1932, if I remember right, died in 1985. I never met him. I didn't come to it until after he was already gone. But I've read all of his books and a lot of other people's books as well. So I checked out the organization after the next day, and turned out they had their annual conference coming up in about 2 months. I went to the conference, met a lot of people there, including someone that you consider a good friend, I think, and several others, including a couple guys who wound up working for me over the years. I met a couple of people who wound up becoming mentors for me, Dr. William Esser, Dr. Alec Burton,
Right.
guys I spent a lot of time talking to and getting information from. And these guys were amazing. They were gentlemen. They were incredibly knowledgeable and experienced and willing to share information. There were others.
And they were fasting practitioners, right?
They were both fasting practitioners.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that occurred for me was after I made the changes to my diet and I started looking at books for sort of a different bent a little bit, because now my mind was open. Okay. That's when I started coming across other things. And it was actually Arnold Ehret's book, Rational Fasting, that I first encountered. Now, Arnold Ehret's books, primarily there are two. He wrote probably a dozen books, but it's really only Rational Fasting and the Mucusless Diet Healing System that have ever really had any significant distribution, publication. I came across Rational Fasting, later read the second one. And I was going to say those books aren't really considered texts in the natural hygiene community, because, and I think it's valid, because although Eric was my first real teacher on fasting, I consider Shelton much more of a mentor, in terms of mentors I never met from reading their stuff. I'm much more in alignment with Shelton than I'm with Eric. But Eric, I think, was a pioneer and definitely moved the whole movement forward. He helped me out. At the time I read Eric's book, we had no internet. There was no search engines. There was no Google. There was no Facebook. There was no YouTube. It was me and a book written by a guy who'd been dead for 65 years or something.
What would you say is the difference between like Eric's approach, rational fasting, and then Herbert's fasting can save your life, or the other books he wrote about fasting? Was it a different thought there?
Well, I mean, fasting can save your life. It may not have come across as being very different than Eric, because Fasting Can Save Your Life was Sheldon's last book, and it is, I would say, the most lightweight book that he wrote.
Right.
That was a book. I'm sure finally convinced him, hey, write a book for the masses.
Yeah.
Because his other books were these huge encyclopedic tomes, which the Science and Fine Art of Fasting is probably the best book on fasting I've ever come across. It's also the hardest to read by far. Very dense and thick, and it's not easy going. Fasting Can Save Your Life is like a 15-minute read. It's 125 pages. Frankly, I think it's practically useless for anyone that already knows anything. It may be okay as a very first, as a primer, but you have to get beyond it because it's intended for the person that's curious and wants to fast for a week, something like that. But to be honest with you, I haven't read Eric now in 35 years.
Right.
So I'd be hard pressed even to really remember exactly. I mean, what I remember was this guy talking about people going weeks without eating. And I thought to myself, this guy sounds crazy.
Yeah.
At the same time, it made a little bit of sense. It made some sense to me. I don't know if I was more open or not. I grew up with fasting one day a year. I'm Jewish, only on my parents' side, both parents. And so, I'd fasted every year for one day, no food or water for one day. And I knew I could do one day. But still thinking, weeks without food, that sounds crazy. Like I had no idea a human body could go that long. So I tried 2 days. And I parked myself close to the refrigerator just in case. And when I survived that, I did 4 days and then 8 days. And I worked my way up because I really, there were at the time, William Esser was still practicing in somewhere around Palm Beach, Florida.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, Dave Scott, up in Strongville, Ohio.
Yeah.
And at this point, I can't remember whether Goldhammer had his first place or not. He might have already had his first place.
What about Ray Kent?
Well, I never came across Kent because he was not really accepted by the hygienic community.
Okay.
He was an outsider, and I didn't come across Ray Kent until much later. So I never met him, never spoke to him. I don't know if he ever wrote anything. I've never seen it. I don't know much about him except that he was kind of like, he moved around and from place to place and was kind of like a fugitive, I think. That was kind of how he operated. It was like, oh, everything was secret. Don't tell anybody where I am. I guess he was concerned about the establishment.
Well, isn't there kind of a history of there being like crackdowns? Like, wasn't there a time when there was quite a lot of, I can't remember, maybe I'm making this up, but wasn't there like a time where even in Florida alone, there was a whole number of fasting centers and they all got shut down, or they all got like ran out of business or something? Or am I making that up, or is it this?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
right, okay.
There were, at one point, there were 3 fasting centers in Florida.
Right.
William Esser's place. There was a place, Frank Sabatino ran a place, which I don't think was ever really purely fasting. I think he was kind of lightweight on the fasting. He believes in it. He's a great guy. Very good looking man. People used to ask me all the time if I was Frank Sabatino. Yeah, at these conferences, people come up and say, Dr. Sabatino. I'm like, no, he's over there. I'm not him. Apparently people thought we looked alike, but that was probably what I yeah, He's older than I am by probably 10 years and still has more hair than I do. So he turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Doug Graham had, for a few years, had his place in the Keys. Doug was shut down. Doug was shut down by the American Natural not the International Association of Hygienic Practitioners. The other two places ran. In fact, Frank Sabatino still has a place. He's changed over the years various times, but he still has a place there. At least I spoke to him about a year ago. He was still doing some work. Esser unfortunately died 10 or 15 years ago. Great loss, I think, because he was really amazing. Actually,
But wasn't he like 93 though?
He was playing tennis.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was till the end. I mean, he was a great guy in good shape, and yeah, amazing. There were probably half a dozen fasting centers. There was one in New York, in North America, maybe more. And unfortunately, virtually all of them. The only real that still exists is True North in California. And of course, after dealing with a big lawsuit years ago, they stopped taking people that were really sick. If you're really sick, they won't take you. If you're very lean, they won't take you. We fast very lean people all the time because very lean people often aren't digesting, absorbing, or assimilating very well. And I just got a message from a client who said, I want to come back. She was here in October, so I want to come back in July if you think that's okay. I now weigh 20, I think she said 30 pounds more, 20 pounds more than when I left Tanglewood. This is someone who couldn't gain weight for years. She went to True North. They let her in. They told her that she was too skinny to fast. Then they told her she could fast for 5 days. She did. She lost weight she couldn't put back on. She came here after doing that and fasted for 15 days and eliminated Lyme disease, eliminated all kinds of issues, and now has been able to gain weight for the first time in her life. The woman who does my videos for the last 4 years was 5'7", 88 pounds when she came here. She just fed the cats, actually. She now lives on site and has been working with me for 4 years. She now weighs 125 pounds, just completed her 4th fast here. She couldn't gain weight until that fast, 21 days at 88 pounds. So I know people think, it doesn't work if you're too thin.
So whatever that condition is, Loren, is unbelievably rare because the amount of people that can't gain weight in this world is like obviously not a lot of people because obesity and overweightness is the major issue. So I'm not sure who all these people are and how they're not gaining weight.
No,
I suspect maybe there's a number of reasons why people don't gain weight that are maybe not to do with some kind of mystery illness.
I don't think any of them have a mystery illness. I think what they all have is a whole bunch of old hard waste in the intestines, and they're no longer absorbing anything. Because every person who fasts with me winds up eliminating pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds. This woman, after her 4th fast, and she's been living here for 4 years and eats 100% raw now. The first couple of years, she, had some missteps when she wasn't here. The last couple of years, it's been 100%. And she still eliminated a ton of old hard waste after this fast. It takes most people a few fasts to do it, but that's the key. This is why most people, a lot of people, I don't know about you, I run into people all the time. I'm coaching hours every week, and I see people all the time who have trouble gaining weight on a raw vegan diet because their bodies are used to consuming these very concentrated sources of calories. They can do it then, but as soon as they go to the stuff that we're actually meant to be eating, they have trouble doing it without eating huge amounts of food, which no one should have to do.
Well, I was with my nephew, my niece, right? And at the time they were 2 years old, 1.5 years old. And I got up in the morning, I had some bananas, they came over. My nephew ate 3 bananas and wanted a 4th, right?
Yeah.
But when we take adults and say, let's do a raw vegan diet, they don't eat 4, but they don't eat bananas like that. Do you know what I mean? I just think people don't gain weight because they've lost the habit of eating enough. And
well,
I'm sure you're absolutely right that there's people that can't gain weight and there's reasons for that. And
well, there's quite a few
absorbing and so on. But it's I would imagine it's quite rare, whatever that is, just because people on these really bad diets have no problem gaining weight, most of the time on the bad. So I don't know, but I want to, I want to get to that point about, the old hard ways, because a lot of people would suggest that would not agree with you on that. That's a point that a lot of people, including fasting people, will say. True North, for example, I think Michael Clapper, I think he said,
Michael's a good friend.
yeah,
Michael's a good friend. I was in his house last year.
I imagine that you guys would disagree on mucoid plaque, because I think that, or hold hard waist, whatever you want to call it, because I think that you say that he's not seen it as a fasting practitioner, but I don't know what
right. Let me address that. You're absolutely right. And in fact, we've talked about that twice in the last 2 years, because 2 years ago we were co-keynote speakers at a huge event in Tel Aviv, he and I, and we spent a week staying at the same hotel, hanging out together. I've known Michael for nearly 30 years. Well, because he used to broadcast. He was living in West Palm Beach, where he is again now, and he had a radio program broadcast from a public radio station outside of Washington, D.C. And so in Washington, D.C. And so he would fly up like twice a month. And at the time, I was on the board of the Vegetarian Society of Washington, D.C. This is like 30 years ago, 27 years ago. Whenever he was in town, if we had an event, and we often had events on weekends, he would come to our events. So I got to know him pretty well. I saw him 20 times over those 2 or 3 years. And we talked a lot. I told him about therapeutic fasting because I was at that point fasting myself. Tanglewood didn't exist yet, but I was fasting myself. He had trouble believing what I was telling him. Ironically, he winds up maybe 12 years ago going to work for True North. He was there for 9 years. He has never seen, he doesn't believe mucoid plaque exists. He's never seen it. Well, it's no surprise why. True North doesn't do what they need to do. I mean, we see a dozen people a year who went there and didn't get what they wanted. I know of one client who came to us and now goes to True North, but the only person I've ever heard of. Most people go there and then wind up coming here, and we heal them. They don't heal at True North. And here's why. Their average fast is 10 or 11 days long. It's not long enough. If you're 20 years old or older, I mean, maybe it's different if you're 5 or 6, but if you're 20 years old and you've been eating conventionally, you're not going to get that stuff out with 10 or 11 days. It takes 10 or 11 days to get into the deepest part of the process, which is why every year I'll fast 250 people or so every year now. We used to do way more than that, but we're not open all the time. We're open 10 weeks at a time, take a 5-week break, 10 weeks more, 5-week break. So it's not as many as it used to be. But of these 250 people I fast every year, roughly, probably 10, maybe 20, probably not 10%, will fast for less than 21 days. Okay, our average fast is 26. Our clients do 21, 26, 30, 35, 42. Why? Because the benefits are dramatically greater that way. And fasting, I mean, we had a woman here who has been a raw vegan for quite a while. She, normal type journey, doing all kinds of things, found a fruitarian diet. Actually, I think the last time we did this together, she asked a question. She was on that call and asked me a question. She just left here. She came to fast for 26 days, but she couldn't do it. She was tiny, 5 feet, 5'1", maybe 85 pounds. And she wound up getting very nauseous and had trouble getting enough water. And so we broke her fast after 11 days. She spent 21 days here or more. She was supposed to be here for 35. So yeah, she spent like 24 days eating here after the fast. She never eliminated any old material, but she's the only person here. Everyone else around her is eliminating, I have a woman here now who's my age, who came in here with all kinds of health challenges. I told her when we first spoke, listen, I think there's a lot of old hard stuff because I see the patterns. I know exactly what that looks like when people are telling me what's going on for them. I said, I think you've got a bunch of old material in there. She has eliminated 6, 10, 12, 13 times every day for the last 2 weeks that she's been refeeding, starting on the 4th day of refeeding. Okay, she's only eating 4 times a day. There's no way you're going to have 13 bowel movements with 4 meals. And these aren't small bowel movements. This is the stuff that's been building up in her body for 60 years. We see this with every single client, okay? But there's three things, three mistakes True North is making. One, they don't fast people long enough. Two, they tell people not to drink more than 2 liters a day. Three, they keep people active, okay? There's a flat screen TV on every room, on the wall of every room. There's Wi-Fi, which is harmful to the body. They have activities all day long on the first floor, and almost all the guest rooms on the second floor. No elevator, people going up and down stairs. I've got one set of stairs here. I've got one set of stairs, and I tell people, don't go up there while you're fasting. It's just that next to the pool, we have a little building with a roof. You can go up there and sit up there, and it's a beautiful little view up there. But I'm like, wait till you're refeeding. It's too much. It's a gentle, but it's too much to do. Okay, yeah, it's those three things. That's the issue.
Let's get back. Let's complete your kind of journey, and then how you to be where you are, and then we'll jump back into some of these things, because there's debate about these things, and there is a lot of questions, and I think people would like me to challenge you on these things, because they
feel free, but know that we have more than 100 videos, and on many of them I asked the clients. I had an engineer here from Germany last year who weighed his poop, and he was eliminating kilos and kilos and kilos of old hard waste. This stuff is black, foul, painful. I mean, some people describe it as feeling like they're eliminating cement. This isn't the fruit and leafy greens people are eating, because you know what that feels.
Is it not possible to test what this stuff is then, and how old it is, how long it's been there? Is there not? Because then you could prove it to people, and people would not.
Yeah, well, I've been asking that question. Actually, I just fasted my 5th MD this year. I mean, the 5th one this year. I fasted 20 MDs, but 5 of them this year. And this one he walked away from medicine. He's, board certified in a couple things, and he walked away, now only uses alternative therapies. And a client of mine who knows him said, you gotta talk to Loren about fasting. So he wound up doing a 26-day fast with me, completely changed his life. He's now referred maybe 6 people to me just in the last couple of weeks because of the results that he had. He too has eliminated pounds and pounds. He started off saying, well, it could just be stuff from the liver. I was like, yeah, isn't that stuff going to be watery? He said, yeah. I said, no, this is a hard material. He'll tell you, oh yeah, hard material. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, what was your question?
No, we'll get back to you. So we got to the point where you're sort of starting to go to you'd already learned, and you would even seems like you were giving some talks. You found out about the Natural Hygiene Association. You went to some of their events, and I guess. Well, firstly, like your transition to raw and everything, how did that go for you? You said you basically gave everything away and you just went?
I did.
Is that it? Did you have any challenges with it? Was it a struggle?
I didn't. And what happened for me was I was clear, again, I was looking for the most natural diet possible. I was actually at a health conference as a participant. Give me just 1 second. I've got my secretary looking for me.
No problem.
Saúl quiere comer ya.
En la mañana.
Quiere cortar ayuno ya.
En la mañana.
Digo que mañana en la mañana.
En la mañana. Puede ser que siempre mejor, ¿no?
Okay.
Siempre, pero a las 10 de la mañana y todo el día. ¿Ok? Si solo puede descansar ahorita. ¿Ok? Ok, sorry about that.
No problem.
Está bien. Puede dejarlo. So yeah, I mean, I was clear that I was looking to make my diet natural, and I'm at this health conference. I'm actually walking from one building to another, down a sidewalk on a city street, and there's attendees outside this building, and I overhear as I walk by raw food, and like a light bulb goes off. I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, here I'm trying to figure out what's natural for my body, and I'm eating cooked food every day. How natural is that? And that was, I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to give up cooked food. But I'll be honest, that was in late October, 30 years ago, this past October. And at the end of November in the US, we celebrate Thanksgiving. And I'd already told my sister I would come to her house a couple hours away for a big Thanksgiving dinner. So I thought to myself, I think I'll wait till after the dinner because it's a big deal, right?
Sure.
She lived apart from everybody else, and so where everybody else was in DC, I was going to go up to her place. I thought I don't want to go there and not participate. I mean, I was already vegan, but she already knew that. I didn't want to change the deal again. So I had dinner with her. The next day, no more cooked food. So this past Thanksgiving was my 30-year anniversary. The next day was my 30-year anniversary of being all raw. It was easy for me because remember, I had this amazing blessing, this amazing gift. I got really sick at 23. I realized at 23 how valuable my health was to me.
Yeah.
Most people don't really get sick until they're in their 50s or 60s or older, anything really serious. I mean, now it seems like it's getting younger and younger. But at the time, it was pretty rare. And because of that, most people keep making relatively poor choices until something wakes them up. Well, I was shook and awake at 23. And I realized I'd lost my freedom. Okay. I've been very physically active. Now I was exhausted all the time. I could barely do anything. And I thought to myself, you know what? I mean, if you could have convinced me that eating, manila folders is going to make me healthy, I'd be eating manila folders. I wanted my health back. And so when I realized, okay, raw food is what's natural for every species, I'm not eating anything else cooked. Now, I still made lots of mistakes initially with the raw vegan. I mean, things that I would call mistakes, right? Eating things that are way too complex, eating things that one can eat raw, but doesn't necessarily mean one should eat raw. I did all that, but it was easy for me because I was highly motivated. And I made some missteps. There are people out there, I know several people who claim they've never eaten, a single bite of cooked food since they went raw. I think most of them are probably not telling the truth. I've tried it on more than one occasion, and almost every single time, my body said to me, "You're an idiot. Now you're going to pay," because it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it really cemented the importance of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I became super clear. I have a client who is fasting with me. As you know, I work with people remotely as well as here at the center.
Yeah.
And this woman is fasting with me for the 5th time, I think, maybe 6th time. She started, the first one was here, and ever since then, it's easier for her not to travel. We do this from home. Today, she wrote to me and said, I ended my fast. I already ate last night. I'm embarrassed to talk to you. And I wrote to her and said, don't be embarrassed. It's okay. It happens. Be on the call. No one else needs to know. We'll just work, we'll work through it. We'll get you past this, right? But she said to me, I feel like hell today. I feel terrible. I feel like I was poisoned. I'm like, well, you were poisoned. You've been poisoned every single time you've eaten cooked food. You just couldn't tell before.
Yeah.
Your body wasn't sensitive enough to notice, right? So that's what happened for me, and it made it really easy. I mean, I'm so grateful that I got that sick because it made it really clear. I value my health, my vitality, my mental clarity above all else. That's the most important thing for me.
Sure. Did you ever feel sort of alone doing this kind of a path? Did you have
absolutely
friends, community?
Absolutely, sure. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, look, I don't know about you. As I said, I've always been kind of a loner. I felt alone at many points in my life, even when I was doing the same thing as everybody else. I always felt a little different. I think I always had that little story going on that I'm not lovable. There's something wrong with me. And so making choices that were completely different from everybody else, yeah, that probably exacerbated things a little bit along those lines. Honestly, I didn't really care. I mean, again, I became really clear that the most important thing to me was feeling good, not fitting in. And I would encourage everyone. People say to me all the time, well, I do pretty well at home, but when I'm with other people, I don't want them to think I'm weird. And I'll usually say to them, they already know you're weird. Okay, don't worry about it. Just do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Just take. Who cares what you eat? I figure if somebody doesn't want to be my friend because I eat differently than they do, then I don't need them as a friend. It's okay, right? And what's happened? I think you're aware of this. I think you've probably experienced the same thing. By living my truth now for all these years, I attract people into my life who resonate with who I'm being. Okay, and so I know now. I've work with more than 15,000 clients, many of whom I call friends around the world in 145 countries. There's almost no place I can't go where I don't know someone and can call someone. I have a lot of raw vegan friends. I have a community that lives here with me, about 8 people right now who aren't paid staff, but they live on site and help in various ways, like Guzelle, who just fed the cats because I was on this call, and does all my videos, and other people doing other things here with me, helping me out in various ways. This is my family. This is my soul family.
Cool.
Right?
Cool.
And I love my family, but they don't really understand me. And that's
Right.
okay. They don't need to. They don't need to.
So where did it come for you, where you changed from the commercial real estate world towards your profession essentially being a fasting facilitator? How did that all happen?
Well, I started out just as a health coach. What happened was, I was in the commercial real estate field when I got sick. Right, I was going back for my 5th or 6th cup of coffee one day before lunch, and I thought to myself, I think I'm addicted to coffee. And I wasn't willing to be addicted to anything. I just wasn't willing to be there. I want, like, I've always valued freedom. I didn't want to feel like I was compelled to do anything. And so I decided no more coffee. Well, that's when it only was like a week later, I'm like, holy crap, I'm exhausted because I've been propping myself up with caffeine for years, right? I mean, through college, and this was my first year out of school. I've been propping myself up with coffee. It's like a year and a half out of school. And so at that point, that's when I realized that all this stuff was going on. But it wasn't such a big shift for me from there. That's when everything sort of became apparent to me. What was really happening in my body when I started letting go of the substances that were propping me up. I could feel what was really going on.
Yeah, for sure. But what we were really talking about there was, I think you got sidetracked there, but the change from you in the profession of commercial real estate.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So what happened was, I'm sorry. So
no worries.
I took responsibility. I walked away from that third doctor. I took responsibility for my own health. And within about 6 months, I was healthier than I've been in a long, long time. And what happened was, people started coming up to me and saying, like, if they hadn't seen me for a month or more, they would say, oh my God, you look amazing. What did you do? Right now, I may not look amazing anymore, but that was 35 years ago, and I don't get very much sleep these days and work too hard, etc. But anyway, back then, my skin was glowing. I had this incredible energy. My eyes were clear and bright, and people were like, the last time they saw me, I was dragging my butt around with no energy and not looking very healthy. Yeah. And they're like, what did you do? Could you help me, or could you help my kid, or could you help my father? Could you help my spouse? And so I started, and I was like, I wanted to help people, right? It felt good. So I started offering people help as much as I could. It took me a couple of years to realize that spending most of my time giving away free advice and not putting the time into running my business that paid the bills wasn't a very good strategy to pay the bills. And so after a few years, I thought, you know what? It feels much better to me to help people get their health back than it does to help wealthy people make more money, which is what I was doing. My clients were all very well, they were all millionaires, and I was helping them make more money. And I thought, you know what? I mean, half of them were assholes. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I'd rather just.
What actually were you doing with that profession?
I was a commercial mortgage broker. So my job was to arrange mortgages, loans on commercial real estate projects. The average deal was $5 million. And again, this was 30 plus years ago. My biggest deal ever was $32 million. It was a lot of money back then. That was a $320,000 commission, which was split between myself and the company. And so I was doing well, but I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. And so I thought, what?
You gave up that to go into health.
To become a health coach.
Wow.
And I worked as a health coach for a few. Now, what happened was, I'm coaching people, And I'm primarily talking about diet and other lifestyle choices, not so much fasting. But I've always, I believe when I interact with a client, it's like this conversation. It's not like, people call me Mr. Loren. I'm like, no, my name is Loren. Call me Loren. Okay. It's very casual, friendly, and people knew, because I'm an open book, that I was fasting myself a lot back then. And they were seeing these amazing results. And people started saying, guide me through the process.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not qualified to do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
They kept asking me. I finally agreed that I would take people at first only for relatively short fasts of like 10 days maximum, and only people that weren't terribly sick initially. And as I gained more and more experience, I decided I would take people on longer fasts. But in fact, at one point I thought, okay, you know what? At that point I was aware, because I'd been introduced to the American Natural Hygiene Society, the International Association. I knew that there were places that existed. And I looked around, I didn't like what I saw. They were all way too clinical. There's studies that show if you're in a hospital with a view of a tree, you heal 20% faster, something like that. I don't remember the exact details. But it's important. Really? And this is just in a hospital, like in a city with a view of a tree, right? I thought, I don't want to be in this clinical setting. If I'm going to fast, I want to fast in nature. And so my very first Tanglewood Center, every room looked out into gardens and trees. And then the second location, we were on 17 acres of forest. It was amazing. Almost every room had a balcony or a patio you could walk out into where you're looking at the surrounding forest. And then of course here, it's amazing. We're in this amazing climate. So that was important to me. And I decided, okay, you know what? There's nothing more powerful or beneficial when done correctly than fasting. And I don't like what's being offered. So I'm going to create something better. I'm going to create the best fasting center that's ever existed. And that was my goal. And it still is. We're constantly doing everything we can to improve. And the goal is always to give everybody the very best experience possible. We have, by the way, like this session, we'll have around 60 people. It's a 10-week session. The average person's here for 5 weeks. So, some people are here for the whole time. Some people are here for 2 weeks, but most of them are here for 4, 5, 6 weeks. So it's about half and half the session, like two different groups. And we'll have about 60 people here for the session. Out of that 60, there are 16 or 17 who are here for their second, third, fourth, or sixth fast with me. And they keep coming back because it's an amazing experience for them.
Okay, so you're kind of up to speed there on your own personal journey, which is really great, really interesting. And Tanglewood got started.
There's one more piece that, Ronnie, if I may, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Sure, of course.
I think there's one more piece that's important to say.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd gotten to know William Esser and Alec Burton pretty well. Both great guys. Esser was older and was getting up in years and was already ready to sort of he had slowed way down. But I really connected very well with Alec Burton, who's a super nice guy from Sydney, Australia. And I said to Alec, I'd like to come do the fasting supervisory training with you. And he said, Loren, I'd be glad to have you. He said, I don't recall. Are you an MD, a chiropractor? What kind of license do you have? I said, I've got a driver's license. And he said, I thought you were just because I'm reasonably intelligent and had studied a lot. I knew a lot. We'd have these conversations. He didn't realize I wasn't a licensed practitioner. He said, I'm sorry. He said, we're part of the International Association of Hygienic Practitioners. We're not allowed to train anyone who doesn't hold one of these 4 licenses. You had to be an MD, chiropractor, naturopath, or osteopath.
Right.
And so he said, I can't do it. So what I did was I hired a guy who was certified to train other people, had been through the training, was certified to train other people. And he worked for me for a year. So if you did the professional certification, it was a 6-month process. Okay. I hired this guy for a year and decided he wasn't a very good fit for Tanglewood. So he left and I brought in another guy who was the same qualifications. And I had a 2-year on-site training at my own
Right.
facility. Now, to be honest, I had way more experience at that point than either of these guys did, but they had the training, they had the education. And so they taught me a lot, and I'm sure I taught them some things too. But I had 2 years of on-site training here at Tanglewood.
And I've had some conversations where it's interesting you're talking about that, and I've had conversations where people have talked about the difference between a physician and a non-qualified person or whatever, and they kind of make this point like, well, I'm a physician and I've got that training, and these other people don't have that training, and yeah, I understand that that's important, of course.
Well, it's interesting because there was a comment in one of our group calls. I do these group calls with clients who are fasting with me remotely, and there'll be up to 6 clients on a call. And this happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I had this MD who's fasting with me at the time on the call, and someone said something to me about being a doctor. I said, "You realize I'm not a doctor?" And he said, "No." He said, "No, Loren, you're a real doctor." And I mean, he understood I don't have the medical school training, but the point is that what they teach people in medical school, I mean, there's a lot of valuable information about how the body works. There's also a whole bunch of brainwash bullshit. And so, there's a lot of people. I mean, Herbert Shelton said you should only fast with someone who's experienced at guiding people through fast. He never said anything about having a license. This is not a medical procedure. Now, it's important to understand that there are some things that can come up and know what to look for.
Yeah, but it is, I mean, it is, and this is a question that might come up is, you are dealing with some very sensitive situations, and as you were kind of alluding to the fact that you will take on people that are maybe the True North won't take, the other places won't take, and that must cause, I mean, that must be people like that. Essentially, there's people that are so sick that they die. Now, whether that's anything to do with the fast or whatever, it's still gonna potentially cast a negative shade on fasting if the person was anywhere around fasting, at the time of their death or at the time.
Well, that may be true. And I think the truth about this, Ronnie, is that those people who are looking to cast dispersions on fasting because they think it's stupid or they don't understand it or don't believe in it, whatever, they're gonna find a reason no matter what. And those people who really understand it, I mean, I remember way back in the US, we had a type 1 diabetic who overdosed on insulin at her own hand. We got her to the hospital alive. She died several days later. There was a doctor at the hospital who said, no, she died because of mismanagement by the hospital. And all the doctors I've fasted since then who understood what happened said, no, couldn't have been your fault if she lived several days. I mean, you come in with very low blood sugar, it's not that hard to get the blood sugar up. That's what happened. Her blood sugar crashed because she overdosed on insulin. Now, of course, the medical board says, well, it's our fault. And there's nothing you can do. You can't beat the medical board in the US because they make and decide who's in violation of the laws. But the people who were there at the time this happened, I sat all my clients down. It was, again, about 3 or 4 days after she left, she died. She passed away. I got the news, and I sat everyone down and said, this young woman died. And I'm thinking that afterward, you guys are done, we're going to close. And my client said, what are you talking about? It's not your fault. What you're doing is amazing. We need this place. Don't do that.
Right,
the people,
okay.
And so, you know what? I mean, I can't manage everyone's opinion, and I'm not going to try to.
But when you're saying overdosing on insulin, that would suggest they're type 1 diabetic, and I guess there's a lot of places wouldn't take a type 1 diabetic.
That's right, they wouldn't. But they're wrong. We fasted 25 type 1 diabetics and had Gazelle, the woman who just fed the cats a little while ago, just did her 4th fast with me here as a type 1 diabetic. Now this fast, after these other fasts, guess what? This time around, she didn't need any insulin while fasting for the first time. She didn't need to take any at all, 0. Now that she's eating again, she's back to taking a little bit of insulin, but she didn't need any. I mean, we've gotten her from where the average person was to needing 15 or 20% as much insulin as she should have to take based on her size. We've had a couple of people be able to get off insulin completely. So there's no reason you can't fast a type 1 diabetic, although a lot of people won't do it. Look, what I decided was, when I opened Tanglewood, I thought to myself, you know what? People need to, this is nature's way of allowing the body to heal itself. And there are very few conditions that people can't safely fast in. Now, most people that get into trouble because they're not drinking enough water, they're drinking too much water, or they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. And when people do this properly, there are very few issues. There's always some. I tell everyone, look, there's inherent risk in going 4 weeks without eating. You need to be willing to take that risk on. I also realized at the beginning that this is something I believed in so much that if I needed to go to jail, I'd go to jail. I'm not, people need to understand that medicine kills more people than anything, and that the body is self-healing and self-cleansing. How do we let the body cleanse and heal? Well, the best way is to stop eating and lay down and rest, just like every other species on the planet does. The problem is that places like True North are more concerned about liability lawsuits than about helping people heal. So, for me, I'm thinking, okay, the most important thing is to give people the opportunity to do this. And we're doing everything we can. And ultimately, at some point, we probably will hire an MD. But it's going to have to be the right one. It's going to have to be the right one.
Yeah, so I guess the way I feel about fasting sometimes is I totally agree with you on everything you said in terms of the power of it, the effectiveness. There's many people in my life that have been unwell. If I could have got them to fast, would have been a great thing, and I believe in it. But my concern, in a sense, is that people aren't perfect, and people don't always do things for the right reasons, and people approach things the wrong way.
Sure.
For many people I believe that there's a lot of people within the raw vegan movement as well that really have a background of eating disorders, and fasting becomes a way of hiding that as well. And so I personally, with the Fruit Festival that we do, I've kind of limited or not really encouraged people to talk about it or speak about it or teach about it too much, including Doug, who is another fasting practitioner, because I just feel that, well, firstly, I think if someone wants to go down that route, they should go and speak to someone and talk to them about that fully and look into that in their own time, because the festival is not the right place for that. But I do think that there's the odd person that it's the wrong thing for them, and it's not what they need, and they are a vulnerable person, and things can sometimes, it's not the thing. And what I've seen is people, for example, who try and turn it into a lifestyle where they are continually fasting.
Right. I see it all
2 days a week, 3 days a week, and it becomes this cycle of like every time they eat badly, they fast again, and it's like they never get their diet right. And it's so.
I'm with you, Ronnie. I'm with you completely. In fact, look, I have clients that would come here every single session if I allowed them to. I won't. I tell them, you need a minimum of 6 months between these longish fasts. And for some people, it should be longer than that. And I believe that fasting is a remedial tool, and the whole key is to get ourselves to a place where we're eating so well we don't need to fast. So I fast now, but only when I have an injury, when I have some specific thing to heal. I got my body clean. I keep it clean. I don't need to keep fasting. It's not about fasting. Fasting is a tool, but it's the best tool we have. Yeah. I've yet to see a single person, not one person, injured by fasting when they've done it correctly. We've had all kinds of people. We've had these people who come here, maybe not quite right somehow, and looking to, to use this for reasons other than its real purpose. And if I realize that's what's happening, we'll do our best to shut it down, or just make sure they're safe and then not let them back. We have a list of people we don't let back. They're not going to come again. And I mean, it's there. I've got haters out there. A couple of them are people I've said, sorry, you can't come back, when they wanted to come back. Then they started putting hate things out there.
Yeah.
People are funny.
Well, see, that's so. My this is a few things that I have a concern about sometimes. Where, for example, there was a lady that I knew. I actually went to her funeral not that long ago, and she went to the doctor at some point. Didn't really. She must have had some symptoms, and they basically diagnosed very late stage type of cancer, and she was very far along. And they basically said, we can't do anything.
Right.
This is too late. And
yeah,
and she was already had learned about the raw vegan life, so she was going on Fruitfest, and she was very, as she wasn't getting any better, and I think that she actually applied to go to the Lorens Center in Mexico.
Yep.
I just personally thought that, very unfortunately, in that situation, that no, I don't think she didn't end up going, but I've seen places like Gerson, and I don't know, maybe Hippocrates. I don't want to like say bad things about places, but I sometimes get a feeling like they're taking on people who want to do something, who want to try and do something, but probably it might be better for them just to stay at home and spend the last time of their life with their family and get their
you may
get their things together, and I know that's bad, but I feel like sometimes people are getting they want to do something, want to go to a place like that. Maybe you get people like that applying for Tanglewood as well, and I get concerned about that side of things, where someone is unfortunately kind of beyond the point of help potentially, especially with cancer, and it's very sad, but it's hard.
It is very sad. Let me
respond. Saying you would take someone, and is that the case? You wouldn't. I don't know. Like, what would be your?
Well, so look. I mean, I interact with adults as if they're adults, and so I can tell you some very specific stories. I had a client. I got an email from two young men in Europe, and they wrote and said, "Loren, we're brothers." Like, to these two brothers that signed this letter, we're brothers. Our parents and us watch all your videos. We subscribe to your channel. We watch all your videos, and we're writing to you now because last week our dad was diagnosed with a stage 4 tumor in his liver. Stage 4, which means it's not just in the liver, it's metastasized, it's gone through the lymphatic system and other organs. And they had said, the doctors give him 2 or 3 weeks to live. Can fasting help him? And I said, unfortunately, by the time something gets to this stage, the likelihood of survival is not very good. But people do survive sometimes. So what I said was, I don't know if fasting will help or not, but doctors have already told him he's going to die soon. He's got nothing to lose. Now, my recommendation is, he should stay home with the family, and he can work with me via Zoom calls every day rather than traveling and being away from the family.
I see.
And I said, the only thing he has to lose is the cost of my services. And if he can't afford it, maybe he shouldn't do it. And they said, no, money's not an issue. And he fasted with me, and he survived he did a 6-week fast and survived about 2 weeks after the process, after the fast. He did wind up dying. He lived like 3 times longer than they told him he would. And he felt much better those last weeks and enjoyed life much more than he would have, than he had been doing. I had a guy actually in Scotland, I want to say maybe a year ago, who wrote to me and said, Loren, he said, I've watched all your videos for years. I wish I'd actually acted on the information. I never did. I still eat conventionally. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It started in I think it was the colon. It's gone into the spine. They say they can't operate. I'm confined to a bed. And the doctors here told me, the NHS, go home, eat whatever you want, spend time with your friends. There's nothing we can do for you. You're going to be dead in a few weeks. And this was a guy in his 40s. The first guy was this was a guy in his 40s. he said to me, what do you think? I said, it's almost the same story. I said, listen, you're in a difficult situation, and I'm not sure that this is going to help you because it's kind of late to be starting now. But it can't hurt you. And again, I work with him remotely. He was home. He had visitors. He was stuck in bed anyway, but he was in his own place. And again, unfortunately, he did not survive. He wound up. I think he also fasted for 6 weeks, and so long because they're dealing with a very serious condition. And the longer the fast, the greater the chance the body can deal with it. Again, these are both people that have already been told nothing we can do for you. Okay, sure. We've seen other situations. Now, let me tell you about a situation that's a little bit different. I had a woman who came here. She was from Romania, living in the UK, living in London, and she came to me about 5 years ago with a giant tumor in her breast. She fasted for 26 days, and the tumor all but disappeared. It went to the size of a pea. Now, one of the things about breast tumors is you can actually palpate them. You can feel them, right? You can see how big they are. So this thing shrunk way down over the course of nearly 4 weeks fasting until it was this little tiny thing. She went back to London, and she went back to making poor choices. And a couple of years later, she comes back. This time, it's actually opened up, and this can happen, right? It's no longer sealed. It's open. Decaying flesh. It was terrible. I mean, I had to keep her. We have our main salon. You've seen some of my videos where I'm addressing the group here. You're seeing one small part of a very large space. We can seat 65 people out there. We don't normally have more than 32 or 34 fasting at once. So I said, listen, we put her into her own room. You're going to have to sit over here away from people because no one could be near her because of the smell. And she began fasting. After a couple weeks, she was clearly deteriorating quickly. And I said to her, I think you should go home, not to London, but to Romania and be with your mother for a while.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't say to her, I don't think you're going to survive, but I didn't think she would survive. And she went home. She went home and she died there a few weeks later. And I'm glad that's what happened. So, again, I don't think we have I'm not going to say to someone, you're too sick, we're not going to take you because you might.
Yeah.
I want to help people that want to heal, and we're going to be willing to do that. But I also, I'm always going to be realistic with people. I don't know everything, and I've seen so many miracles you wouldn't believe it. Things that medicine says can't possibly happen all the time.
Yeah.
Like they happen all the time. So, but I'm going to tell people, this is a tough situation. If you're really committed to healing, maybe it's possible, but you got to be committed.
Yeah, I think the disappointing thing to me about with the raw vegan diet and the fasting thing is the fact that cancer is still that thing that there's so many things that can be dealt with, it seems, and miraculously, as you're mentioning.
Right.
But that seems to be the one that's still, and a friend of mine who's been in raw foods since the 70s kind of thing, he said to me, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but he once said to me that Herbert Shelton claimed that he had never seen a case of cancer, of probably diagnosed cancer, being eliminated by fasting.
We've seen it over and over again.
Really? Yeah.
Over and over again. I could probably tell you 20 stories of people who've completely eliminated the tumors. Now, unfortunately, if people go back to making poor choices, they're likely to come back. But because it's always about lifestyle choices. I'm just realizing that we've passed 5 o'clock, and I have another call I'm supposed to be on. So let me just send a very quick message.
Let me pause the recording so just a second.
Recording again?
Sorry, I've started again now. Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to say, your own personal diet and lifestyle, how you approach it. I think some people would even see that as a bit controversial. I think you've recommended,
absolutely,
or sometimes suggested, a lower calorie diet than other people would suggest. For example, what is your kind of daily lifestyle, and how does that work?
Yeah, well, so first of all, let's clarify a couple things. I just realized I could brighten my screen to have a little bit more light on my face because it's getting dark here. So if you talk to people who are focused on longevity. The only thing that they'll tend to agree on is that the less you eat, the longer you live. Now, obviously, I mean, we have to meet our body's needs, but if once we meet our body's needs, eating more than that is never helpful. It's never useful. The key is to meet the body's needs, but not exceed them. And there are people who promote caloric restriction, which I don't believe in restricting caloric intake, because that means I'm not giving my body what my body wants.
Yep.
What I've been teaching, Ronnie, for 30 years now is that we make our bodies as efficient as possible. Okay, and by making them, and how do we make the body efficient? Well, we get the garbage out, so the body works better. We allow the body to start digesting as well as possible, absorbing and assimilating as well as possible. And we keep our diet as clean and simple as possible. And so almost all of my meals are mono meals, okay, for 30 years. I mean, there's exceptions. I still eat gourmet raw vegan food from time to time. But here, when I'm home or when I'm traveling, very infrequently am I mixing a couple of fruits together. Sometimes, mame sapote. They're so sweet that for most of the time I wouldn't want to eat a meal of those. So I'll eat, depending on their size, 6 to 10 of my favorite bananas and one sapote, and that's a meal. But most of the time, my meals are typically watermelon, papaya, pineapples, mangoes. I just had a meal of, I had breakfast at 2:30 this afternoon when I finished with my guests here, and I had 4 granadas. You know, granadas are in the passion fruit family.
Right, yeah.
We grow them. I love them. I had 4 of those. It's just liquid and a little bit of seeds inside. That's it. Just that. That's my meal. That's the way I eat. When we keep our diet as clean and simple as possible and the body works as well as possible, it becomes very efficient. And so I've maintained my weight of about 150 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall for 30 years, eating an average of 1,200 calories a day. I don't recommend that people eat 1,200 calories a day. I recommend that people eat whatever their bodies need. Okay, but we had a UK football player, a professional football player from the UK, who had suffered a multiple compound fracture in one of his legs, and was told that if he broke it again, he might not walk again. And so after he got the cast off, he came here to finish the healing process. He fasted for 30 days. It's a 12-day refeeding process, and he was probably on day 7 or so. And he said to me, he came up to me and said, I can't believe how good I feel. I'm working out 3 hours a day. I'm running. We have a giant trampoline. We have a saltwater pool. We have exercise bars. We have kilometers of trails. We have mountain bikes. I'm working out hours a day. I feel incredible. I'm building muscle. I'm just curious how many calories am I eating? So I went and calculated and came back and said, about 1,200. And he's building muscle. He said, 6 months ago, I'd have been eating 5 times that much while participating as a professional athlete. And now I'm just as active and building muscle, consuming a fraction of that. We see that all the time. So I know there are a lot of people who think it's crazy, it doesn't work, it's impossible. It's not. The key is to get the body truly clean and functioning as well as possible. And then it happens for almost everyone. I hear this all the time. We had a client who wrote to me and said, Loren, I think I need to increase my caloric intake. I said, really, why is that? Are you losing weight? Are you running out of energy? Are you, having trouble with mental clarity? What's going on? She said, no, I feel amazing. My weight's stable. I've never felt better in my life, but I calculated how much I'm eating and I'm only eating 900 calories a day. And I wrote back and said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay.
That's something that a lot of the rest of us in the raw vegan world have not seen. People eating 900 calories a day and maintaining their weight. So
well, she was a tiny person, 105 pounds.
That's a difference. Yeah, that makes a difference for sure. But it's like, chimpanzees seem to be eating 2,000 calories, and bonobos.
They're a lot more active than most people are. I mean, even there, I'm up at 5 o'clock and usually to bed at 10 or 11. I work out every day. I'm super busy. I mean, I'm not running because I don't have time. I don't do a lot of cardio type activity. I do body weight exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, dips, etc. And I maintain my strength. I feel incredible, and I eat way fewer calories than theoretically I'm supposed to be able to maintain. But I've had a lot of people do exactly the same thing. The key is to get the body clean really clean and functioning as well. And I'll guarantee anybody, I mean, again, I know this is controversial, but anybody willing to do this properly and take coaching, if you can do what you need to do, you will feel and function better than you ever have in your life. That's what happens.
Well, thank you very much, Loren, for
Pleasure.
as I say, we need to do a part two because, and I'm not saying we'll do it right away, but another time, we've
Yeah.
covered a lot of the stuff, including this Casas place.
Las Cascadas.
Yeah, right. So definitely we should talk about that.
Sure. I'd be
Um,
happy to.
How do people get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
Well, I'm old fashioned, so the best way is probably still email Loren@tanglewoodwellnesscenter.com. But anyone interested in the project, we have a website that the project is set up as a nonprofit foundation. It's called lascascadas.org. There's a website with lots of information, probably too much. We're going to be revising it so it's a little easier for people to navigate, but there's a ton of stuff there. Lots of good, and in fact, check it out because we're going to soon be, I think it's 4 weeks from, 3.5 or 4 weeks from now, roughly, I'm going to be doing a roughly 1 hour webinar on Las Cascadas, just to share with people where we are, what's happening, what it's about, and how they can get involved if they're interested. So if anyone interested might want to tune in, it's completely free. You'll have to register for it, and you can do that. Probably the easiest way is to go to the Las Cascadas website. Now, if you follow me on YouTube or Instagram, I'll be talking about that over the next weeks, pretty soon as we start getting information to go. Like we have to come up with the exact times, etc., and we'll start promoting that very shortly.
Yeah. So Tanglewood Wellness Center on Instagram and all these places.
It's Loren Lockman on Instagram.
Okay. Your personal community. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Loren. I know you're busy.
Pleasure.
Go to, and we will speak to you again. I want to thank everyone who's watching, who's listening. Please feel free to like and share and send this to others as well. And thank you for supporting the podcast. And we'll see you in another episode of the Love Fruit podcast. Thank you very much, Loren.
Take care. My pleasure.